Okay, in this session, we're going to learn how to delineate polygons in ArcMap. Okay, so here's the steps we're going to cover. We're going to delineate timber stands or fields using the edit tools. We're going to add new attribute fields to the attribute table to describe the polygons or other features. And last, we're going to populate the attributes for each polygon using a variety of methods. So let's get started. Okay, so we're back to our ArcMap project where we have our CM track identified. So what we're going to do now is we're going to break this down into different polygons such as timber types or field types. So what we're going to do first is we're just going to break out all the polygons, and then we'll go back and create new attribute fields and populate those. Okay, so what we want to do first is we want to start an edit session on the track layer. So I'm going to right click here. I'm going to come down to edit features, and I'm going to go to start editing. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I've got my editor toolbar turned on. And one common misconception is we go to the create features, and we don't need to do that unless we need to create a new track boundary. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking these internal, we're going to be cutting from the boundary, creating internal polygons. So the tool that we want to use to do that is called the Cut Polygons tool. Okay, but first we need to use the Edit tool, which is a little pointer to determine which polygon we're going to cut from. Okay, so now that we've highlighted the polygon we're going to cut from, we're going to grab the Cut Polygons tool. Okay, so at this point you may want to also come up and grab the zoom tool so that you can zoom in if need be, so that you can see a little bit with a little bit better clarity, a little bit better detail. So what I think I'm going to do first is I'm going to start on this boundary between this pine plantation and this natural pine more open type area. I'm going to delineate the boundary here. Now for time's sake, I'm just going to rough it in. If I were doing this as a real project, I would take my time and do a little bit better, a finer job, but I just want you to get the concepts here. Okay, so I'm going to grab the Cut Polygon tool, and the trick is I'm going to start outside the property boundary. Okay, and I'm going to click and I'm going to put my first vertex. From there, I'm going to simply go along the boundary of the planted pine. Like I said, if I were zoomed in, I could probably get a little bit better detail on this, but for time's sake, we're just going to do it this way. All right, now if I need to pan the map, I can use the arrows on my keyboard, and I like to do that so it keeps me from having to go grab another zoom tool and then go back and restart go grab the Cut Polygon tool again. So I just pan the map a little bit using the arrow keys, and then the trick here, once I get to the another property boundary, is I'm going to double click on the outside, and it's going to split this into two polygons. So I'm going to zoom to my previous extent just so you can see what we've got here. Okay, now when it's time to cut the next polygon out, what I've got to do is I've got to grab the editor tool, and I've got to click outside the polygon to unselect. Now this time, what I thought I'd do is I'm going to get this little branch right here that comes into the pine plantation. I'm going to cut it out this time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom into it so I can see it pretty well. And then I'm going to grab the select tool to actually select the polygon we're going to cut from, and you'll see how it turns it blue right there. And then I'm going to grab the Cut Polygon tool, and just like we did before, I'm going to start outside the polygon. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to rough this in as best I can. And another thing while I'm doing this to mention is you'll notice that when I zoomed in closer, you'll see that we got a new image that was displayed that's much better or higher resolution than the one that we had when we were zoomed further out. Okay, this is pretty common when using the ESRI based maps. Okay, so I come over here, cross over, and there we've got that cut out. Okay, so now I'm going to grab the editor tool, and I'm just going to click outside the property altogether and zoom out a little bit. Okay. Now this particular method I'm using works great whenever you're when you're digitizing polygons that join the property boundary, where you have something to cross. But let's say this little what may be a food plot or something right here, a little opening. Let me show you how to create a little, what I'm going to call a donut hole type polygon. Okay, so the way we could do this is, first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our edit tool and we're going to select the polygon that we're going to cut from. Alright, now I'm going to grab the cut polygon tool, and what I'm going to do is, normally I would start here and I would go around this little, this little polygon, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a little sliver, or a little piece of a line that I can cross back over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right here. I'm going to come down and I'm going to go around, and now you'll notice how I'm about to cross over that little line segment that I'm going to cross over. Now whenever I double click, you'll see that it extracted that out. Okay, and that is the proper way to do like a donut hole. Okay, so right here I'm gonna right click on the CM track and I'm gonna zoom to layer. I'm gonna zoom back out to full extent. So that gives you an idea of how to delineate stands. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a couple more right here. I'm going to maybe delineate out this little, maybe this is a little yard area, and I'm going to delineate this little yard area over here, and this this heavier pine from the lighter pine. So I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to finish this up, and we'll see the end result. Okay, here's the finished product. You can see that I just roughed in a couple of home sites and a little open area right here, and a little natural pine as compared to some more sparse natural pine. Okay, at this point what I want to do is I'm done editing, so I'm going to go to my editor and I'm going to hit stop editing, and I'm going to save my edits. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over and I'm going to open my attribute table, and I want you to notice that the acreage that each one of these records in the attribute table here represent one polygon. Okay, and you'll notice that all of them show 94 acres. So I'm going to fix that. I'm going to go back and I'm going to right click on acres again, and I'm going to come down to calculate geometry, hit yes right here. I'm going to set this to acres, and I'm going to hit OK. And you'll notice that it adjusts my acreage accordingly and corrects it. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to add some attributes. So the way to do that is we're going to go to the we're going to create some new fields in the table. So I'll hit add field, and let's say for the first one I'm just going to call it type. Okay, and this can be the polygon type, and I'm going to make that a text type entry, and I don't know that I need 50 characters. I'll just make it 20 characters right here, and you'll see that it creates a new blank field in the attribute table that I can populate to describe these different polygons. Okay, so maybe I'll create another field in here, and I'll call this one ID, and I'll make that a text as well, and I'll just use 12 characters on that one. Oops, I've already got an ID field. Okay, so it created a new one, ID. I didn't realize that, but that's okay. So we will now learn about how to populate these different polygons, or the attributes. Okay, for ID, let's say that I just wanted to give each polygon a number for some reason. Okay, an easy way to do that would be to right click on that and go to field calculator, and it brings up a little window like this. So what I want to do is the ID1 field is going to equal, let's just say I want to make it equal FID plus 1. This could be anything. It could be any type of character you want in there, but I'm just going to say FID plus 1, and you'll notice that it numbers each ID, with numbers like that. Okay. Now another way that you could populate the table, let's just say that we wanted to go in here and we'll grab the select tools, the select features tool, And let's say we click on this polygon right here that's planted pine. So it is the first record. So if I just show just the selected records, and on type right here, if I right click on the type header and I go to field calculator, hit yes, and then for the type, if I put in quotes right here, I'm going to put in planted pine. Okay, and I'll put quotes behind it, and I'll hit OK. You'll see that it populates that like that. Okay, so that's one neat way to update attributes. Now I'm going to turn off just so it'll show all records, and you'll see that just that record 1 is planted pine. Okay, so I'm going to unselect everything, and now I'm going to show you another way to populate attributes. Okay, and that is by starting an edit session. So I'm going to go to the CM track, and I'm going to come back down and go to edit features and start editing. Okay, and then this time I can open up the attribute table, and I could just I can come in here and I could type in something directly into the table. Now that's something you cannot type directly into the table unless you're in an edit session. So I can just go in here and call this branch, and notice that I don't need to put the quotes around it when I'm in a and one thing I noticed here too is I think I got an extra space in there, so I'm going to make sure that I remove that. Okay, so that's another method. So I'm going to turn off the selection here. Now the last method I want to show you is by using the attributes tool on the editor toolbar. So since we're in an edit session, we can click on the attributes tool, and then we've got the edit tool selected. So I could go in here and I could click on a certain polygon, and I can come over here and it'll give me a place to type in the type right there. So I'm going to put an NP in here for natural pine. Okay, and I'll just click enter. Okay, now I'll come down here for the natural hardwood, I believe it is, and in the type right here I'll just put an abbreviation for hardwood. Okay. All right. Now another thing I could do is come down here and click on this little opening right here. Okay, and I'll just put I'll just call it open. Okay. Finally, I should have 2 polygons left. I should have both of these like a home place or a yard. So I'm going to select both of those polygons, and then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to make sure that I hold down my control key or my shift key or either one of those and select both of those polygons. And now for type right here, I'm just going to call it yard and then hit enter, and now it should populate yard for both of those features. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unselect everything. I'm going to open my attribute table back up, and I'm going to see if I missed entering any type of attributes for the type. Okay, looks like I've got everything in there. So I'm going to close out of the table, and I'm going to stop editing. I'm going to save my edits. Yes. Just some cool things that you can do since you have you have your types in there. I'm going to come down to I'm going to right click on CM track. I'm going to go to properties, and I'm going to bring up the layer properties, and I'm going to go to the symbology right here. So what I can do is I can click on the categories, and I can come over here to the value field, and I can go to type. I can hit add all values down here. I'm going to uncheck that one, and I can have automatically have these different field patterns used to automatically populate the different planted, the different types like the branch bottom, the hardwood, natural pine. And if you don't like these, you can always go in here and double click on it, and you can choose a different field pattern. Okay, maybe for the hardwood right here, if you don't like the field patterns you have to work with, you can click on the style references. It'll bring up a lot of other different styles that you can use. Like for me, I just have maybe forestry and ESRI turned on, so I don't have a lot going on here, but I scroll down. Maybe you want to choose one of these scrub. You could, even though you could use that for the hardwood. For the natural pine, you may want to use a a crosshatch pattern like that, and you can adjust if you want to get fancy, you can edit the symbol, and you can go in and change the colors for all this stuff if you want to. for open right there, you could make it a solid. If you don't like that fill color, you could just go in here and make it a gray, something like that. For planted pine, you could you go in here and find something that looks like it's on a grid almost. And for the yard, if you just wanted to make that open. Okay, so you got the ability to do all that kind of stuff, and you can apply that. And you can also click on this thing, double click on there, and you can go to the display, and you can set transparency if you wanted to. If you wanted to make these layers 50% transparent or something like that so that you can see through them, you can do that. If you don't want to apply the symbology anymore, we can go back and turn the transparency off, and then go to the symbology tab and go back to features, and go back to our original desired hollow fill pattern with just a yellow line. Okay, so that's the basics of digitizing, adjusting symbology, and entering some attributes. Okay, so in the next section we'll jump on into working with some soils layers.